Friends, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me, and we're starting. There are people who say that revenge is a waste of precious time that could be used more productively by doing other things. For me and my way of thinking, good mental health requires retribution when you get fucked. You have a choice. 10 or 15 years from now, you can look back and say, damn it, I should have. Or you can look back and smile that you did it. In high school, Trisha and I dated for a year and a half, and we had an ongoing relationship, and towards the end of our freshman year, she dumped me for the quarterback of our team. Danny wasn't very bright, otherwise he would never have gotten along with her. I think he started to get it when we played the Ypsilanti Braves on Friday night, and the right back stepped aside to let his opponent pass. The right back, it was me, did it 3 more times before I was taken out of the game and sent to the bench. By that time, Danny's doorbell had rung too often, and he was dragged out because he couldn't get himself together after that. Marty, the second striker, came on as a substitute for Danny, played a great game, and we beat Ipsy with a score of 2,400 hours 21, but my football career was over. The coach kicked my ass again for what I had done and kicked me out of the team, but first he asked me why. I told him straight out why I did it, and that I would do it again if I had the chance. He called Danny and asked him if it was true that he stole my girlfriend. Danny puffed out his chest and cracked. It's not my fault that he can't keep his woman. The coach just looked at Danny, shook his head and said, son, it was a great team. You had to play together to win, and for that you need to be on good terms with your teammates. You just shouldn't bully your teammates. And he also excluded Danny from the team. In the end, it cost us both the chance to get a football scholarship. It didn't hurt me because my parents could afford to send me to college, but Danny's parents couldn't. Danny was so angry about being kicked off the team that he told Trisha to go to hell. She came crawling to me, and I sent her. Danny was popular, and the fact that he was kicked off the team angered many people, and Trisha, who was blamed instead of me, did not spend the happiest rest of her freshman year, and she was not very good in high school either. She was the only girl in her senior year who wasn't invited to the prom. This led to another unpleasant result. I tried my hand at football at Eastern Michigan, but the coach didn't even look at me. He told me that he knew everything about what I had done, and that no one with such an attitude would ever play for him. In a way, it was probably a good thing, because without interfering with football, I was able to gather my strength and graduate from school with an average score of 3.91, which made me attractive to XYZ Corporation. I went to work with them a week after I was awarded my diploma. I haven't seen Trisha since graduating from high school. When I was in Eastern Michigan, she studied at the University of Michigan. On my second day at XYZ, I was sitting in the cafeteria thinking about the options for the insurance package that I had to choose, when someone sat down across from me and put a tray on the table. I looked up from my papers and saw Trisha. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Are you going to say hello?" I looked at her for a few seconds, said, "Hi," and then went back to looking at the documents for receiving insurance payments. "Are you still offended?" I said hello. "This is what you asked for, and I gave it to you. Now, if you don't mind, I need to make a choice and get the paperwork done." "Good. Let's try this. I asked you to say hello to me, and you gave me what I asked for. While you're in the mood to give, I'm going to ask you to forgive a stupid teenager for being a stupid teenager. Rob, we all did things that we regret when we were in junior high school. I screwed up. I'm sorry. Can't we at least stay friends?" I looked at her sitting across from me, still the most beautiful girl I've ever met, and I thought, what the hell? It doesn't hurt to just be friends, so I said, "Good. We can become friends." She smiled, held out her hand and said, "Shall we shake it?" I took her and shook her, and 11 months later I took her hand again and put the ring on her finger, saying, yes. The next 5 years passed quickly. Trisha and I decided that we wanted to wait a bit before having children. We had places we wanted to go and things we wanted to do. We wanted to become a little more financially stable before starting a family. We gave all our energy to each other and our work. We bought a 3-bedroom house because we knew that one day we would have children. We got our passports and spent our holidays traveling and getting to know the world. By the end of that 5-year period, I started talking to Trisha about kids, but she told me she wasn't ready yet. She had just been promoted to the position of manager in her department, and she had something she wanted to do. Some changes she wanted to make the department more efficient and leave her mark on it. I knew how she felt because 6 months ago I was appointed head of the department and I felt the same way. I didn't really like her new job because she had to travel a lot and was away on average 2 to 3 days a month. But she loved her job and was happy, so I decided not to insist on having children until she hit a wall. You know about the wall, right? Every company that has been in business for a long time has a wall. It's called because that's what we've always done. I knew that the deep-rooted bureaucracy would resist all the changes it wanted to make, and eventually it would stop fighting them and then be ready to think about children. Judging from my own experience of trying to make changes, I only had about 6 months to wait. Trisha had just left for 3 days in Atlanta, and I was sitting at my desk, wondering what to do with the evening in her absence, when my boss called me and asked me to come to his office. He told me there was a problem at our facility in Charlotte and asked me to fly in and take a look. Naturally, I agreed, and he told me that he would ask his secretary to arrange everything. She called me at noon and told me that she had arranged for my flight at 2:10 and that I would have to change planes in Atlanta. I told her that Trisha was in Atlanta and asked her to reschedule the meeting because I had a plane transfer in Atlanta and I wouldn't be able to fly to Charlotte until it was too late to go to the office. I'll spend the night in Atlanta, spend the evening with Trisha, and take the first morning flight to Charlotte. She called me back 20 minutes later and informed me about the new arrangements. I flew to Atlanta and took a free bus to the hotel where Trisha was staying. I called her room from the lobby, but no one answered. I asked the desk clerk for the key. After checking my driver's license data with Trisha's registration data, she gave me a key card, and I headed to the room. I intended to surprise her when she entered the room, but I was the one who was surprised. I walked into the room, and the first thing I thought was that I was in the wrong room. There were men's clothes hanging on the clothes rack, and I was about to leave the room when I saw the monogrammed suitcase that I gave Trisha when she was promoted. I closed the door, looked around the room, and found enough of Trisha's stuff to make sure I was okay. One look at the unmade bed with a wet spot in the middle told me the rest of the story. I took one last look around and left. I went down to the lobby, went into the gift shop, and bought a copy of the Atlanta Constitution that day to hide behind it, went out and sat in the lobby, from where I could watch the front door and the elevators, and prepared to wait. As I sat there, waiting for Trisha to appear, I was surprised at the lack of rage I felt. Why didn't I wait in the room and then pounce on them when they came in? Why wasn't I sitting there happily destroying everything that this man, whoever he was, had left in the room? Why didn't I tear his clothes and suitcases to shreds? Why did I just look around and then leave? To be honest, I didn't know. I tried to think of what I could have done to make Trisha cheat on me, but I couldn't think of anything. She has not become less loving or affectionate towards me. I didn't see anything that even remotely suggested to me that she might be running on the side. About an hour later, I saw Trisha coming through the front door and recognized the man who was with her. Herb Scott also worked at XYZ. He was a manager in the marketing department. They walked hand in hand to the elevator, and Herb pressed the call button. They kissed while waiting for the elevator, and then the door opened and they went inside. When the door closed, I got up from where I was sitting, went to the pay phones, called the airline, and boarded the last flight from Atlanta to Charlotte. I might be leaving, but was I going to let her get away with it? Not for her life. But my revenge on the cheater should not have turned into a blatant confrontation. I wanted a lot more satisfaction than that. I didn't know what I was going to do with him yet, but it was going to be something that both of them would remember for the rest of their lives. It seems that it was the Italians who said, "Revenge should be like good wine. It should be drunk in small sips and savored." I landed in Charlotte, went to the phone, and called Trisha. When she picked up the phone, she sounded out of breath. "Where have you been, Rob?" I called home a couple of times, but no one answered. No wonder, because I'm downstairs in the hall. I'll be right up. What? Yes, my love. Charlie asked me to go to Charlotte and solve a problem there. I had to change planes here in Atlanta, and I thought I'd spend the night here with you and head to Charlotte in the morning. Here? Are you here in the lobby? I heard the panic in her voice when she said, "Wait a second, Rob. I left the water on in the bathroom, and I need to turn it off." I heard muttering in the background, and then a very distinct, "Oh shit." I smiled, imagining her lover trying to pack his things and leave the room. I could imagine him rushing down the hall to the stairs until I was in the room, or maybe getting dressed there, and then going down the stairs to the reception desk and trying to get a room while Trisha hurriedly made the bed and figured out how to explain the wet spot. I heard the door close, and then Trisha appeared on the line again. "I'm sorry to keep you waiting, darling, but I didn't want the tub to overflow." What was that "oh shit" that I heard? Rushing to the bathroom, I hurt my toe, and it hurt me. "Oh, baby, I'm sorry. It wasn't your fault." Well, in a way it is. If I hadn't called to joke with you, this wouldn't have happened. Are you joking with me? Yes, honey. I'm not in the hall. I'm calling from Charlotte. I actually had to change planes in Atlanta, and I was going to surprise you, but I couldn't get off early enough in the morning to get here for my meeting, so I couldn't stay late. Oh my God, honey. You made me think I was going to make love tonight instead of watching all that nonsense on TV. Maybe I'll surprise you next time. Listen, I have to run. And here is the bus from the hotel. I'll talk to you later, honey. Love you. I love you too, Rob. While at least I had the pleasure of knowing that I almost drove Trisha and her goofy lover to a heart attack. During my stay in Charlotte and on the way home, I thought about how I could get revenge. I turned over a dozen plots and scenarios in my head, and one by one discarded them as impractical or too difficult to implement. I returned to the main office and gave Charlie my report, and when I left his office, I saw that my revenge was heading towards me. Marcia, Charlie's secretary, was just returning from the ladies' room, and she seemed very uncomfortable hobbling down the hall. I wondered if Trisha would have hobbled and felt the same way if she were 8 months pregnant. That evening, the last one for Trisha on her trip, I sat down and made a list of what I needed to do to make it happen. None of this was too difficult, but it would take a long time, which means I would have to play the loving husband. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was a good enough actor to handle this role, but I had to try. The first step in this plan was to get Trisha pregnant, even though she didn't want to become a mom yet. Well, no, that couldn't be the first step. The first step was to get rid of Herb. No, damn it, I couldn't do that either. I needed him for the confrontation, for the plan to work. Okay, the first step was to be my preparation, and I knew how to do it. Every summer, the manager of our Dayton branch took a 3-week vacation, and every year Charlie asked a volunteer to cover for him in Dayton for the 3 weeks Ralph was away. I was Charlie's volunteer that year. 3 weeks in Dayton was exactly what I needed. It gave me time to deal with my anger, which made it easier for me to play the role of a loving husband when I get home. I talked to Trisha every night, and we talked all sorts of nonsense like, "I love you," "I miss you," and "I wish you were here with me," while I kept wondering if Herb was with her in our house and not whether he used it on our bed. I returned home, ready to carry out my plan. I watched, I calculated, I made maps, I planned and waited for the stars to converge. It took almost 4 more months. For months of pretending to be a loving husband before everything fell into place. Trisha was leaving for Atlanta once again, and I kissed her goodbye the morning she left. As soon as she left, I picked up the phone, called the marketing department, and asked for Herb Scott. I was told he was in Atlanta on business and wouldn't be back for 3 days. The timing was perfect for me. I went to Charlie's office and told him that I had urgent family matters and would need a few days off, and then I flew to Atlanta. I was lucky enough to meet the same employee at the counter, and she remembered me. After comparing my driver's license with Trisha's registration data, she gave me a key card, and I went up to Trisha's room. I knocked a few times, but no one came to the door, so I went in and found the same setting as last time. Herb's clothes were hanging on a clothes rack next to Trisha's clothes. That was all I really wanted to make sure of, so I went down to the lobby and waited. I hid behind a newspaper and sat there until the two of them got in and got into the elevator, and then I got up, went to the restaurant across the street, and had dinner. It took me about the same amount of time to eat as, according to my calculations, it would take the two of them to undress and be in the center of events. I returned to the hotel, took the elevator to the 5th floor, and took out my mobile phone. I dialed the hotel number and asked to be connected to Trisha's room. Just like the last time she picked up the phone, her voice was out of breath. "Oh, hello, darling. I was just about to call you. You wouldn't have caught me." "No? Why not? Do you remember when I called you and jokingly told you that I was in the lobby?" "Yes, I remember." "Well, honey, this time it's not a joke. I'm going up now," and I blacked out. It wasn't very athletic of me. In fact, it was like fishing in a barrel. I was standing in front of room 507 when the door opened and Herb hurried out. He had a suitcase in each hand, and he was wearing only boxers. He didn't even notice how I hit him in the face with my right fist, putting all my 90 kilograms into the blow. I felt his nose break and saw blood spurting in all directions. He fell to the floor at the feet of Trisha, who was hurrying after him, carrying his clothes. She pulled on her robe, but did not tie it. Some things never change, do they, Trisha? First Danny, and now Herb. I kicked Herb hard twice with the toe of my shoe, and then I turned around and left. I headed to the airport and boarded the last flight home. I knew Trisha well enough to know that she wasn't going to rush home from Atlanta. She was supposed to stay there and do her job, so I had 2 more days before I would see her again. I used these 2 days to prepare for the next step to take revenge on Herb. As for getting even with Trisha, I wasn't sure how that would happen yet. It will depend on what she does. If she had come home begging for forgiveness and really wanted it, everything would have gone the way I wanted it. If not, then what I had planned would have worked anyway, but it would not have brought such satisfaction. Like most XYZ employees traveling on business trips, Herb left his car in the company's parking lot and took a branded shuttle bus to the airport. I waited until there was no one left in the building and it was dark outside, and then I slipped into Herb's office. For the next 2 days, I kept an eye on Herb's car, and the day I saw it was gone, I walked down the street to a pay phone and called the police. I gave them Herb's name, address, and information about his car and said I saw him selling illegal substances to XYZ employees, and then hung up. 2 days later, the XYZ staff cafeteria was buzzing with excitement. Did you hear what happened to Herb in the marketing department? He was arrested for trafficking in illegal substances. Darla from the marketing department said that the police came to Herb's office with a search warrant and found illegal substances in his desk. Joe told me that Herb was stopped for some kind of traffic violation and illegal substances were found in his car. Fran said she heard he pointed a gun at the cops and fled. I've always been suspicious of this weasel. I could tell he was no good just by looking at him. Somehow Herb got out on bail and went to work only to be suspended from work while an investigation was underway into allegations that he was selling illegal substances on company premises. Meanwhile, Trisha called me half a dozen times a day, but I didn't answer any of her calls. The day she returned, she walked into my office and closed the door behind her. "May I sit down?" I shrugged, and she sat down in a chair on the other side of my desk. "You didn't answer my calls. Considering the circumstances under which I saw you last, was this a surprise? I thought you'd want to talk." "What is there to talk about? You cheated on me. That's why we need to talk, Rob. I didn't cheat on you. I could never cheat on you. I love you, Rob. I know you're upset about what you saw, but Herb doesn't mean anything to me. I need you to give me a chance to explain everything. Could we please sit at home tonight and talk?" "Why? Are you going to make me believe that this never happened? That it was just a big hallucination, and I really didn't see what I thought I was seeing?" "No, Rob. I'm going to try to convince you that I love you, and that even though this happened, we're going to get through this." "I don't think so, Trisha, but I'll give you a chance to talk. Now, if you don't mind, I'm very busy right now, so please leave." When she got up to leave, I was smiling inwardly. Everything should have turned out the way I wanted it to. Trisha had dinner ready, and there was a bottle of wine on the table, uncorked and breathing. It was a party in honor of Trisha, and I was silent. I made her work hard. "First of all, Rob, you need to know that I love you. I have always loved you, and no one will ever take your place in my heart. I want you, Rob. I don't want anyone else, and you have to believe that. Herb was a mistake, a terrible mistake, and I should have realized that after that first time." "Why do you say that? Why didn't you understand that the first time?" "Because I wasn't in the right shape to understand anything the first time. Can you explain it in a way that a poor, simple, minded soul like me can understand?" "The first time it happened, I was completely drunk. It happened during one of my working visits to Dallas. After the meetings, the office staff and I went out for dinner and a drink. After dinner, we went to the hotel lobby and had another drink. You know how booze affects me, Rob, and you know that I usually watch what I drink, except when we're at home. But I was at the hotel, I rented a room right on the second floor, and I didn't have to go home. So I let myself relax and enjoyed life. By the time the people left the office, I was already close to getting drunk. I was going to go up to my room when the last of our group left, but at that moment Herb came in and saw me. He was in town on business and stayed at the same hotel. He sat down next to me, bought me a drink, and we sat and talked. He bought me another drink, and then another, and the next thing I know, I'm lying on my back and he's making love to me. I don't remember leaving the bar, undressing, or being undressed. It's just that all of a sudden I'm looking at Herb. Considering what he was just arrested for, as far as I know, he put something in one of my drinks and drugged me with illegal substances. You know me, Rob, and you know how I am when it comes to love. Drunk or sober, I get carried away with it, and although I didn't know how Herb got there, my body reacted to what he was doing. I skipped dinner that night and went to my room. Around 9 o'clock, I got hungry and called the room service. When there was a knock on the door, I opened it, expecting it to be room service, but it was Herb. He pushed past me into the room and began to undress, and I, watching him, thought the damage had already been done, and I was curious to see what it would be like when I was sober. That's how it all started. When did it start? When I got a promotion and started traveling. This was my third trip. Have you been making love to Herb for a year? Yes and no. It's been a year, but it's only been 5 or 6 times. Just when we were on business trips at the same time. So last night wasn't planned in advance? No, Rob, never. And I didn't look for him when I was on a business trip, but if he came to me, I never refused. On that last trip, he was at the airport when I arrived there, and persuaded an airport employee to put us down together. I don't have any good reason for this, Rob. It was just something to do when I wasn't at home. It was something better than just sitting in your room and watching TV. How many times did you make love to him in our house and on our bed while I was in Dayton? I've never seen him except on trips. I swear to God, Rob, he's never been in this house. I've never done this with him, except when we met on trips. If it hadn't been for that first time, Rob, this would never have happened. I think the way I looked at it was, we've already done this, the damage is done, and Rob will never know. I don't care about Herb at all. He never meant anything to me. So everything's okay? Did he mean nothing to you? No, Rob, it doesn't change anything. I screwed up. I'm sitting here, and I'm asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to believe that I love you, and I don't want to be with anyone but you. It's a difficult task, Trisha, and I'm not sure I'm the right person to do it. What you did hurt me, Trisha. It hurt me a lot, and right now I want to hurt you. I want to strike and make you pay for what you did to me. The worst part is that you did the same thing to me back then with Danny. Something inside me screams for revenge, and I don't see a single way on God's earth to forgive you while I'm feeling like this. What can I do, Rob? I will do whatever you want to prove to you that I love you and want to be with you. Do you want to beat me up? Come on, do it, and I'll grit my teeth and accept it. Come on, Rob. Beat me up and I'll stand still. I'm not kidding, Rob. I'll do whatever you want while we're together. What if I wanted to destroy your beautiful face so that no man would ever want to look at you again? What if I want to carve the letter A for adulteress on your forehead or cheek? She looked at me for a few seconds and then said, if that's what it takes for us to be together, I'll accept it. Most importantly, I really believe that she was sincere. It was the first time since it all started that I thought about the fact that she might really love me. Not that it matters. Her love for me may have been strong, but my love for her has disappeared. I stood up and she asked, where are you going? I can't stay in this house with you, Trisha. I'm not in the mood I'm in right now. I need time to think about what I'm going to do. Please, Rob. I'll do whatever I have to do. I swear I will. I'll think about it, Trisha, and I'll get back to you in a few days, maybe a week or so. She looked defeated when I left the house, and God, but did I ever feel good about it? I let her worry about it for 5 days, and then I called her. I've decided what I'm going to do. The only way I can live with you after what you've done is to do something to get back at you. You will have one, and only one chance. If you do that, we can try to make things right. If you don't, I'll hire a lawyer and start divorce proceedings. What is it? All you need to know is that tomorrow I will be at your house at 5:30, and you will meet me at the door and do everything I tell you without complaint. Just one, oh no, I can't do that, or I won't do that, and I'm leaving. I'll see you at 5:30, and I hung up. The next day, I was at her place at exactly 5:30, and she was waiting for me, as I had agreed. I handed her the bag and told her to take it to the bedroom and pour the contents on the bed. What does it all mean? What is it? She asked. It has to do with your punishment. When you told me your story about how things started with Herb, you said about the second night, I was curious what he would be like if I were sober. That told me everything, Trisha. You will put on a sleep mask, cover it with a towel so that nothing can be seen, and 6 men will use you. 6 men you know. 6 men you see at social events. 6 men. Some of them are husbands and boyfriends of women you know, and you'll be blindfolded so you won't find out who they are. They were told about what you did and that you are a cheating fool. They're going to use you any way they want until they don't need you anymore. You're going to look at them and wonder if any of them were one of those men who used you and knew what a dirty fool you were. Every woman you come across will make you wonder, did I make love to her husband? And if she knew, would she still talk to me or spit in my face? Some of the men who will use you are in close enough relationships with their wives or girlfriends that they can tell them what happened here tonight and why. Everyone promised to keep it absolutely secret, so none of them will ever tell you who they are. You'll see women and ask yourself, does this woman know that I'm a fool who cheated on her husband and then slept with 6 men? I have no idea what these 6 will do to you, Trisha, and I don't care. They may be content to just urinate in your mouth, or they may just want to use you a few times. But whatever they do or don't want to do, you'll let them. One refusal on your part, no matter how insignificant, and I'll leave. I looked at my watch. They'll be here any minute. It's your choice, Trisha. Either put on a sleep mask or put on a bathrobe and close the door. She looked at me silently, and I thought I noticed a tear in the corner of her right eye, but then she took a sleep mask and put it on. I'm going back to the motel and checking out. I want you in this room to be spotlessly clean when I get back, and then we'll begin the second part of your punishment. The second part? What is the second part? I showed her the birth control pills and said, you won't take them anymore. Get ready to become a mom. What about my job? If I get pregnant, I won't be able to continue working after the baby is born. Other women find a way out. Besides, if you don't work, you won't travel, and I won't have to wonder what you're doing in your hotel room and with whom. Anyway, it's not up for discussion. We do it my way, or I'm out of here. Is that clear? There was silence for a moment, and then she said, yes, Rob. It took me an hour to get to the motel and check out. When I got home, Trisha had already showered, changed the sheets on the bed, and tidied up the bedroom. I made a show of flushing her birth control pills down the toilet, and then I climbed into bed with her and used her twice before falling asleep. I needed Trisha to go on a trip, stay with Herb, and then come back at a certain time. And then I had to plan everything right. Trisha went on a trip. I completed my Catch Her in the Act program, and then returned home and waited for her to return. I let her tell my story, and then postponed the conversation for the 5 days I needed to find a suitable evening for my revenge. If all my calculations and planning were correct, then Trisha's gangbang night was the most fruitful night of her cycle. I put on a whole show to rebuild our marriage. I told Trisha that Herb and the night of revenge would never be mentioned again, that we're even and we can go on with our lives. It was hard to pretend to be a husband trying to forget what his wife had done, to forgive her and work on rebuilding the marriage when it was the last thing on my mind. Trisha had gone into the past the day I found out about Herb, and the only reason I was with her was for revenge. I'll never forget what she did to me with Danny. I forgave her for that, but I never forgot. When something happened to Herb, Danny surfaced and, to paraphrase an old saying, I said, cheat on me once and you'll be ashamed. Cheat me twice and I'll be ashamed. There won't be a third time. About a month after the threesome, Trisha told me that I was going to be a dad. Of course, I knew it wasn't mine, and considering the time, it couldn't have been Herb. So the father had to be one of the 6 participants in the gangbang, as planned from the very beginning. I played the loving husband and happy father-to-be until it was too late for Trisha to have an abortion, and then I packed up my things and moved out. I told Trisha that I was sorry, but I just couldn't accept that she cheated on me with Herb. I bought an apartment and then filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and demanded a house, cars, checks and savings, as well as half of her pension fund. Trisha hired a lawyer, and at our first conference, her lawyer stated that I had no evidence that Trisha had committed adultery. I had no private investigators' reports, no tape recording, no audio recording. It was a case where her word was against mine, and she denied it and filed a counterclaim, demanding a house, cars, checks and savings, half of my pension fund, as well as alimony and a significant amount for child support. I laughed and said that I had all the evidence of her infidelity that I needed, in the form of the child she was carrying. I demanded and received a DNA test, and it showed that baby Sarah and was not mine. After that, events developed quite quickly. The judge made a favorable decision on several points. He forced Trisha to pay for my lawyer's services and all legal costs, and I did not have to pay child support, but everything else was divided 50-50. Each of us was given a car that we drove, but the house had to be sold and the proceeds divided between us. I saw Trisha in the courtroom the day the divorce was obtained. She was crying when she said to me, "How could you do this to me, Rob? I loved you, but not enough to stay away from Herb. If you had come to me after that first time and told me what happened, we would have been fine. I would have coped with one carelessness committed under the influence of illegal substances or drunk, but not in a whole year. Goodbye, Trisha." It wasn't the last time I saw her. We both still work at XYZ, and I see her about 3 times a week, and when I do, I ignore her. There was another part of my revenge, and that was what I did to Herb. He was offered a plea bargain, but knowing full well that he was innocent, he refused it and stood trial. The jury did not believe his story that he had been framed, and he was found guilty and sentenced to prison. 2 years after serving my sentence, I visited him. When I was sitting on the other side of the glass partition with the phone in my hand, I noticed a curious expression on his face. I smiled at him and said, "Are you wondering why I'm here, Herb? Everything is simple. I just want to get an answer to one question. Did you have a good time here, Herb? Was it worth using my wife?" I smiled at him when it dawned on him, hung up, got up and left. End.